I think we'll take that as time to start, everybody. Thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoyed lunchtime. Well, it's good to hear. And what a wonderful morning we've already had. And we've got so much to look forward to this afternoon as well. So this is our Q&A panel. A quick note, though, that if any of you wanted to see the Mind people, they have to go at 3 o'clock. So if you want to shift off and see them, that's fine too. So I'm Dean Beadle. I am an autistic speaker, writer, singer, and proud patron of One-to-One Enfield. Have been for, I think, about 7 or 8 years now. And what's wonderful about this conference as the years have gone on is that, as Andrew mentioned earlier, the representation of autistic voices has grown and grown and grown to the point that we get to today where every speaker on the lineup is autistic. And as Andrew said, that shouldn't be remarkable, but it really, really is. So on the panel, we've got some speakers you've heard from already and some speakers and performers that you'll meet across the afternoon. So we've got Andrew Carpenter next to me, who is an autistic adult and autism lead for NHS England. We made friends of Andrew earlier. We've got Bentall here, who is our One-to-One Enfield peer support worker. Many of you all know B. Next to B, we have Nanny Aut, who you met this morning, ex-teacher, blogger, educator, autistic parent. We've got Nicky Vere-Compton, who has joined us over lunch, who is an autistic writer, comedian, advocate and activist. And next to Nicky, we have Janine, who is a socialist, feminist, author, poet, tutor and speaker. I think across those spheres of influence, I think we're going to have a really interesting afternoon. So we've got some questions in the box. Because I get the mic, I get to choose what I ask and in what order. So I'm going to be a bit selfish and ask some of my questions as well while we're at it, because I'm curious now. I wanted to start on Andrew's point earlier. Andrew was talking about the barriers to healthcare. And I was wondering, and it would be an interesting question for everybody to answer, is Dr. Luke Bearden talks about what he calls his autopia, his autistic utopia, what the world would be like if it was designed well for autistic people. So what would an autopian healthcare system look like? From accessing GP surgeries, what would an autopian GP surgery look like? You know, what would make healthcare more accessible for autistic people? So, Andrew, if you fancy it first.
What a good question. No, thank you. Not bad for a beginner. That is a good question, isn't it? I mean, Dean's just referred to Dr. Luke Bearden, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times, and Luke has that lovely equation that he shoves up: autism plus environment equals outcome. And I think he's spot on, isn't it? I think I think a lot of the stuff I hopefully alluded to in what I said earlier, really. I think it would be a surgery where you could access it via whichever way suited you, whether that was the phone, whether that was email, whether that was by a Teams call. I think it would be a surgery where the reception staff knew you were autistic before you arrived and were ready and able to make any accommodations for you. That's as simple as having a notepad and pen at reception in case you don't feel like speaking at that point. You're just ready to make a note in front of them. They would invite you to sit in a quieter space and keep your headphones in, as I said earlier, so you didn't have the anxiety of missing your name being called, that you knew someone's going to come and get you. And an environment where you could kind of choose the time of your appointment, whether you were someone that didn't want to wait with other people, so you wanted an early one, or whether you hated rush hour, so you wanted a later one. Whatever suited you best, really. And yes, an environment where whatever background noise was turned off for you. And then I suppose a doctor who knew again that you were autistic when you entered their room, where your diagnosis was not 11 years down your clinical notes and there was nothing that immediately told them that before you even entered the room would be really handy. A doctor where you weren't automatically sat facing them, but perhaps side to side in case eye contact was an issue, where you weren't looking at them silhouetted through a window with, awful sunlight coming through that was blinding you, or something really distracting outside the window that was taking your mind off why you were there in the first place. And ultimately, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, aren't I? And ultimately, a doctor who learned to speak autistic, like I say. I do think of this as, as I said earlier, talking about autism in the language of minority and less in the language of pathology, and communicating with us and meeting us in the middle, and understanding that we're already in the middle and they're asking us to go even further, but genuinely learning to communicate with us and give us the time we need, the space we need, and then perhaps to be able to follow that up afterwards as well, because sometimes we just forget stuff under pressure and stress of pain or, being in that surgery in the first place. That's probably more than enough from me.
Fantastic. Eddie, everyone else?
I mean, one of the things that I would like is that doctors believe you, because our presentation of pain is different from the majority in a lot of cases. And so either I perform pain so it looks like everyone else's, in which case I'm accused of pretending, or I say, yes, it hurts, and they go, but you doesn't look like you hurt. And I go, I'm telling you it hurts. And again, the pain scale. They used to ask me what the pain scale was, and I used to go 6 because it's 4 and 2, and 42 is the answer to everything. But, I didn't know. So yeah, understanding our presentations, and not doing silly things like, oh, but EDS is really rare. Well, no, if you're autistic, EDS is not really rare. And actually it makes a big difference if you're identified as EDS, because, being able to stand, neck pain, joint pain, dislocations, vascular EDS with heart problems and things, getting those checked out should be an automatic on the diagnosis. But they're not. They just go, oh, no, EDS is really rare, so let's not do it. And of course, when you're female and fat, everything comes down to that anyway. Migraine, yes, you're fat. You broke on your foot, yeah, it's your fat. Yeah, you've got a hernia, yeah, it's your fat. It wasn't the fact that the stitches didn't hold in your operation. You got cancer, yeah, because it was your fat. We got to stop that.
I have a thought I'd like to add on to that, because you were saying about existing coexisting diagnosis. So we know for a fact that autistic people are more likely to have co-occurring conditions, a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to reel them off now. But autistic people who also have fibromyalgia also have this double thing of we don't know where fibromyalgia comes from, and we don't know what causes it. My impression from all my years of having it and everyone I've spoken to is that fibromyalgia is a condition caused by a sensitized nervous system, and us autistics have sensitive nervous systems, and it's caused by ignoring all the signs that your body is telling you to stop, and having pre-existing injuries or pain anywhere in your body and mind that is going untreated. So I know that fibromyalgia is relatively unheard of, kind of new, maybe being seen as an epidemic right now, that lots of people are getting diagnosed by it. But really, we need to look at what's causing that people's central nervous systems to flip and then make them start screaming in pain all the time. Because we got nothing.
There is this work for doing. So, sure. Yeah, so I won't repeat what's already been said about what's other people. It's first of all waiting lists. Let's get rid of them. I've been on a waiting list for confirmation of the bleeding out bits, which is I'm ADHD as well as autistic, for 3 years and 6 months. No idea, and even if I'm anywhere near the top of it yet, I do feel like ringing them up and saying, "Is ADHD patience is not my strength, he's not." But then the answer. I just wanted to make some dentistry, and though I have 3 sons, two of them autistic, the other one's ADHD. My middle son Joe, he goes to see an autism specialist dentist, and he wouldn't necessarily need the safe dentistry with autism specialist, but the dentist speaks autistic, so that's good. And I wanted to make sure that we should get one of the things I think was that Autopian health service be one in which we get the health care we need, but that our autism is not treated as a medical problem. A lot of women in it keep on and the preventative health care as well. So one thing we often need with health care with is anxiety. But I think helping us deal with that anxiety is kind of thing. Play is not making us anxious in the first place. So if we could fix that, rather fix us, fix those things in society that drive us nuts, and that would help. But the final point, maybe the most important point I want to make, is about, I think there are things that would make the NHS better for autistic people that would make it better for everyone. And that is to return to its founding principle. We, as public service, free at the point of views, which includes free prescriptions, free dentistry, free glasses, etc., etc., without private sector involvement, because when you involve the private sector, what you do is you introduce the profit motive into the health service, and organisations start doing things to make money rather than to look after you, and start by enough staff who are paid decently and treated with the respect that they deserve.
Hi, my name is Nicky. I would just like to say that in Autopia, I would like to stop all medical treatment of me being autistic, ADHD, neurodivergent as a mental health problem. I remember going to the NHS in 2006 and of for help with anxiety. When I saw a clinical psychologist 1 year later, the clinical psychologist told me I had NCD. I didn't agree. I asked to see someone else. Waited another 6 months, saw another one. They told me I had BPD. I didn't agree. I didn't ask to see someone else. I washed my hands of them. 3 years later, I obtained a private ADHD diagnosis, which cost me £300. Lucky me. A few years after that, I recognised myself as autistic. To say that improving access to psychological health services helps autistic people would be an untruth. It does not help. It hinders. It pathologizes us. It patronises us. It infantilizes and others us. And I am so relieved that my way of being in the world, my autistic way of being in the world, does not involve meeting NHS mental health professionals. I can only speak for myself, but my experience was they were useless.
I couldn't agree more.
This is one of like the reasons we're doing an inclusion conference today, and I was kind of going to say more about this at the end, but we really need like our local mental health services to not treat autism like it's the illness, but look at people's depression, anxiety, and the structural issues that are causing that, and the environmental issues that are causing that. And I have seen so many people as a peer support worker who have come to me and said, I tried to go to my doctor about my anxiety and depression, and they told me, oh, we don't have an autism specialist, and they just get turned away. So that is like one of my big messages of today is we need inclusive mental health services. Like, yeah, just treat the person. And yeah.
Absolutely. There's a before we go on to the next question, there's a few points I wanted to pull out now, because I'm too gobby not to, and there's things I'm desperate to say. So Janine was saying you wouldn't automatically put, autistic people and dentistry together as a field of work. I heard the other day about an autistic estate agent, and that took me a good week to get my head around, because we're supposed to be very honest, aren't we, by definition? So I do wonder how that person coped, but possibly maybe they were incredibly successful because they were the world's first honest estate agent. Maybe that's what happened. On the points about mental health care, I agree entirely. The point that needs to be raised, and it's been raised already, but I'm going to say it again because why not, is that we are not anxious, we are not distressed, we are not traumatized because we're autistic. We're experiencing those things because the world treats autistic people so badly. And I've been knocking around a fair while now, for 20 years doing this work. And at the beginning of my career, I was saying the problem we have is that the system is designed. We have learning disability services and we have mental health services. If you're autistic and you don't have mental health issues, in theory, and you don't have a learning disability, there isn't that third service to meet you in the middle. And you have to reach that point of absolute crisis before you get any support. And often it might only be, I just need someone to sit with me while I fill in this form. I just need someone to sit there while I make this phone call I've been putting off for 6 months. I need someone to come with me and walk me through the doorway of a doctor's surgery, because if someone doesn't, I won't be able to do it. I need someone to remind me whether I've eaten or drunk something today because of my executive functioning. Yeah, it isn't necessarily 24-hour support we're looking for always. I mean, it's important that stays on the table. but it isn't always. And there was some really wonderful projects going on in Scotland where they were called one-stop shops. And the idea was that you could drop in as an autistic person, and Andrew touched on this earlier, this notion of dropping in. You could drop in, and I know as one-to-one we offer this to our members too, is that you can drop in and say, I just need someone to sit with me for 10 minutes while I think about sending this email. I just need someone to help me write this letter. I just need someone to sit there and just be with me while I do this thing that's really tricky. Putting that in place, seemingly such a small thing, actually would be enormously preventative in terms of long-term mental health issues for autistic people. We don't develop mental health issues because we're autistic. We develop mental health issues because we're autistic and left to struggle without any support for a very long time. And it's a really important point to make. One thing I'd add about healthcare is, and I agreed with all of the points. How lovely, we're all agreeing with each other. I agreed with all the points. It won't last. No, there's a question here, Janine, that I reckon will get you hot under the collar in a minute. I'm saving it till the end. But what I would say is another thing we should add is I would make it mandatory. If we're talking about Autopia, I'd make it mandatory that all autistic patients had double the length of appointment time. Because when I go into the doctors, they rush you to answer the question, and because they've got boxes they need to tick. If I haven't given them all the information that I might have spent months building up to tell them, because going to the doctors is really hard for a lot of us, takes so much executive functioning, so much anxiety, so much fear of being believed, as came up earlier. You get into the room, it's socially overwhelming as well, and you've saved up the information and they don't let you share all of it. And so I leave thinking, if I've not shared with you all of the information, how can I be sure that you know what the problem is? And so I leave doubting the diagnosis they've given me of, an ingrowing toenail or whatever else it might be, because they've not let me give them all the information. Or worse, they'll say, oh, you're just prone to anxiety, you're just worrying. Well, that might be the case, but I still need you to look at me thoroughly so I know it isn't my anxiety and isn't an actual problem. So there's so much that needs to shift, and I went to the doctors last spring, and it'd taken me 6 months to build up to it, and they had a trainee doctor in the room, and they were really supportive, understanding, listened to me, and I went to leave the room, and I thought, I can't leave this opportunity. So I put myself in the doorway where no one could leave, and I said, look, there's things I've come to say. I said, and the trainee doctor listened. I said, look, this whole system is designed for people like me to not be able to get the health care that we need. The reason that healthcare outcomes are so poor for autistic people isn't because we're more prone to various health issues, it's because we don't get them seen to quickly enough. And the reason for that isn't because we're autistic, it's because the system is designed to stop us getting into that room in the first place. I heard someone the other day refer to doctors' receptionists as Cerberus at the gates of hell, and I thought it was a fair description. Someone online the other day said, we don't need a border force, we just need doctors' receptionists lining the coastline. But they make it impossible to even get through that process. Then you've got to pick the phone up. The whole thing is designed really well, like the whole world is, for how neurotypicals process. But for a lot of us autistic folk, just picking the phone up in the first place is completely impossible. And if only, I'm on my theme now, if only they could make e-consultations 24 hours. Because at 4 a.m. is usually the time I've built up the courage to do it. And then you sign in and they say, well, you can't do it till 8 a.m. Well, it's not going to happen for another week then. It'll take me another week to build up. So that the whole system, in the way that you access it in the first instance, I think is set up to fail the way that autistic people process. Is that a question here?
There's also waiting time. As you obviously know, when a child or an adult or whatever, they make an appointment and they say, oh, your time is 2 o'clock, then 25 past 2, they haven't actually gone in.
Yeah.
My son had a complete meltdown, and they called the police. Because he had a complete, this was when he was in Skegness. They called the police because he was just out of it because he'd been waiting 20 minutes to go to the desk, say, my appointment was 2 o'clock, my appointment was 2 o'clock. That's one of the main issues, is that waiting around. If you've got time, he used to be ready, I can understand, he used to be ready an hour before he went to work, in his clothes, ready to go to work at a specific time. He had his money, had a small amount of money. It was stopped years ago because why? Has he been involved? Well, he's been in work since he left school. So they stopped his money, and that used to pay for his petrol and things. You can't use the buses, you get stressed up and buzzing them. That was stopped because he's working. He's married with 3 children, and he still gets complete meltdowns. But the doctors need to know when they make an appointment, and when they say 2 o'clock,
yeah.
So now later, they shouldn't still be waiting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit like every parcel delivery drivers, isn't it? Your parcel will arrive between 8 a.m. and next Thursday. No, some people can cope with that uncertainty, and some of us are completely frozen in waiting mode until that happens. And I don't think people realise just how difficult being in that frozen waiting mode can be for a lot of us autistic folk. Now, you've been in this beautiful box. I don't know who made this stunning, sparkly box. But people have... Well done, B. People have been stuffing questions in my box for the last hour, so I've got them here. Someone's here. I think we're just wanting Andrew's number, to be fair. I work in healthcare. What would be a good place to go to understand more following Andrew's thought-provoking session? Is there a website, somewhere they can get more information following your talk, Andrew?
So I would invite you to join the London Community of Practice, as you're all welcome to do, which we hold monthly, hosted, as I say, by Carly Jones. You will know and works in my team. I guess if you're in the NHS Futures site, we're just about to rebuild. Oh, on the mic, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So NHS Futures site, we have a web page there which we're rebuilding as well. So I think that would be my first 2 ports of call to see what's going on. Yeah, I think that's probably a good start. Yeah.
So Enfield are in the process of implementing Oliver McGowan training. We all know, most of us will know about Oliver McGowan training. It's like supposed to be a mandatory training for everyone in the NHS, I think. Maybe all health and social care professionals are meant to do it. Any CQC regulated activity, you heard it here. Now, as far as I know, I got as far as they're trying to get experts by experience and facilitators in order to deliver this. We need more, and we need especially people with learning disabilities as co-trainers. So if you are in the room and you have a learning disability and you're interested in participating in having your say, training NHS professionals, making the NHS better, then come talk to me and I'll link you up or get in a wave. There's also, if you're in mental health, there's the National Autism Trainer Programme, which is for people who work in adult inpatient, adult community settings, CAMS inpatient, CAMS community settings, and health and justice settings, which is like related to, legal things. And so, yeah, so that is being rolled out. Like I've trained to do that because I am really passionate about improving how NHS mental health settings treat autistic people. Yeah, is there anything else to say on that? Healthcare, getting involved on healthcare.
Yeah, can I add as well? If you work in the health service, what actually go to is your trade union. So in the NHS, you've got big general unions like Unison, United, GFE. But you've got you've also got small kind of hybrids between trade unions and professional associations, like the Society of Radiographers and the podiatrists and the physiotherapists and people like that. I've worked with all of those organisations providing training for their reps and officials about neurodiversity. So unions in the National Health Service are getting more knowledgeable about neurodiversity. So by all means, go and see them and help them get even more effective with use because they can offer you.
Thanks for that, everybody. I've got a question here that moves me, actually. The person says, how do you get real support when you're autistic and don't have friends or family to rely on? Now, as the patron of One-to-One Enfield, it'd be remiss of me not to say, we are here. We've spent 30 years creating community in Enfield. We try to be family to our members, and I say that because I mean it, and because I'm worried that Fiona will smack my bottom if I didn't say that. But it's not that she would, obviously. But what we try and do is create community for adults where meaningful activities, but also empowerment for our adults, empowerment to stand together against a world that can often be hostile towards difference. So I'd say it's about finding your tribe. But does anybody want to add anything? How can someone get real support as an autistic person if they don't have friends or family to rely on? Anybody want to jump in on it?
Sorry, this is not an answer. I'm sorry. And again, not to depress you, but this Sunday will be the 2nd anniversary of my partner's death from breast cancer. She died at 50 with just 2 months and 2 days warning. So, Keisha, see you soon. But this kind of question's become acutely personal to me, I suppose, because now here I am, a 51-year-old, without a partner, family, very, very limited family. And I'm not, I'm kind of in that place, I suppose. I'm lucky enough to work and have colleagues and online stuff, but actually seeing other human beings in an environment that is appropriate for me and accessible for me is proving quite difficult. So it's not an answer, but I guess I just think it's worth remembering, as I might have said up there today, that this is not just about seeing autistic people as patients and clients, but we are also carers and loved ones and sons and fathers and mothers. And so, my accessibility to see Keisha in hospital as her partner, even though she was the patient, was also difficult. So you have to think about this in the round, not just as us, as I say, as the patient. So I'm sorry, it's not an answer, but I guess because it's acutely kind of close to my heart. And I'd just like to say while he's here, thank you to Dean, who has been lovely over this period, by the way. So thank you.
So I was, single parent. I lucked out because my young person found the other autistic in the class, and it turns out autistic children have autistic parents. And so we bonded and we care shared between us. But I didn't have family. My family were totally disapproving of me, my lifestyle, everything. You couldn't ask them for help because, boy, did it come with a price tag. And when I discovered I was autistic, I went, yes, I can explain this. And I went to them and they go, yep, no, we still hate you. So that explains all the horrible things, but that still makes you a horrible person. So not supportive. But what I found was online. Online, there are the communities there. And I met, going online and talking to other people and going, oh, so this fluorescent thing that drives my head insane, that's not a me thing, or it's not an everyone thing. So everyone else is coping and I'm not. This is an autistic thing. Other people aren't suffering. They're not struggling. So of course they're not showing that they're struggling because they're not struggling. And things like that, and people giving advice on how to keep a room tidy and pointing me to YouTube videos that helped. And they weren't going, oh my God, you're a pig, which outside community does, but they go, yeah, tidying a room is difficult. Here are some tips and tricks that I learned. So online communities for autistics. Also, it means that at 3, as Dean says, 3 o'clock in the morning, when the thing that's really stressing your head out can't let you sleep, there's somebody online who you can get on chat with who will tell you, yeah, this is normal, and actually this is the solution I found. So but I couldn't do face-to-face groups. A group like the one-to-one, coming to meet a stranger face-to-face, I'd have been too scared to. There was Autistic Pride in Cambridge. I hovered at the doorway 3 years in a row and never turned up because I was too scared. Dean met me at the autistic when I finally got the confidence to go to a conference, and the poor lad was totally pinned in the airport line because my anxiety was through the roof, and when my anxiety's through the roof, I talk 200 to the dozen. So even Dean was kept silent. And so we need to bear in mind when we do these open forums for people to drop in, it's not as easy for autistics to be able to drop in as person as non-autistics think it is. So we need to find ways to make it feel safer, make it feel more familiar before we actually put our foot in the door.
On the subject of online, me and Nanny Aut met online, found out that we lived in the same county, Cambridgeshire, and became friends 2 to 3 years ago during lockdown. Now, basically, if you are on something like Facebook, you will find online communities run by autistics for autistics, where people put up posts and other people comment on posts, and autistics understand autistics. So just off the top of my head, surprise, you're autistic. Or I've been autistic all along, private group. Or autism, late diagnosis and support. But do speak to me, Nanny, Janine, probably everybody on this panel afterwards about what the groups are. I've got a pad and pen. I'll write them down for you. But no autistic should be alone.
So yeah, we're talking about like real support. So as the peer support, one of the peer support officers at 1-to-1, we've got Jo here today. We're the 2 peer support officers. We are at a time in our service where we've been hard pushed to only have kind of 1 hour with each person, and then maybe I get an hour to do follow-up. There is high demand for our service, and, you know, because there's not much like it where, you know, we can offer like, you know, me and Jo and the autistic person, maybe their family member or carer who comes with them. And we just go, hey, what do you need help with? And if we can help with it, we'll do our best. If we can signpost to an organisation that can do that, like many of the stalls here today, then we will. I think when we're talking about real support, we're talking, you know, if we're talking about getting people matched with support workers and befrienders, I think there are organisations like the Enfield Wellbeing Network that do befriending, but basically they need volunteers. They need volunteer befrienders. And then we've got adult social care who are, you know, by the Enfield Council Adult Social Care, supposed to be hooking people up with support workers, social workers, like 1-to-1 people. And that is an absolute minefield to navigate. And, you know, a personal thing of mine is, you know, to make an autistic utopia, we need like a social care system that works for us. And we need autistic people to feel like they can use that and that they're allowed to go and ask for help. And like everything, you know, talking about making GP services that work for autistic people, we need social care services that work for autistic people. You know, one of the things I was told is that I could be given a budget and I could hire my own support worker and like make my whole job description for that and like pick someone that I wanted. And I was like, that sounds like an executive function nightmare. So like, and I was assessed by Enfield Council, and then my social worker went missing and didn't get back to me for like 6 months. Where's she gone? She's just left. Like everything was kind of on me to chase. And that was a mess. And then I moved to Haringey, and again, radio silence for a really long time. I have since been assessed. We don't know where that's going, but an occupational therapist is coming to fit me a grab rail tomorrow. I'm excited. But yeah, we really need, in terms of real support for autistic people, we need a social care system that is not just autism aware or autism accepting, but like really on it. Because so many autistic people don't even doing that fawn response thing, like thinking, oh, I can get by, until they then go into burnout, and then they end up in inpatient. And then I get people really sadly self-referring to the peer support hub from adult inpatient care, telling me they don't know how to deal with autistic people in here. So first, you know, preventative support, social care, let's sort it out so we don't have so many autistic people in inpatient care.
Absolutely. Janine, any thoughts? Nothing to add. I'd like to add on to the internet thing is that what I saw happen in lockdown, that part of history we don't like to talk about, that we have to pretend never happened. But in lockdown, when everything went online, I saw rejoicing in so many autistic adults who said, at last, I can attend things. At last, I don't have to do it in overwhelming environments. At last, I can go watch something at the theatre without having to be in a centrally overwhelming environment or a socially unpredictable environment. But it's important to remember that just as many autistic folk were really struggling to access social. I spoke to autistic adults who said, I can't do Zoom because I don't know when it's my turn. I don't know when it's my turn to jump in and speak. I can't access it. I have to be in person to do social. So it was a fallacy to assume that suddenly because everything was online, everything was more accessible. There was still, inequalities there. What I'm upset about is that since lockdown, we've shifted back to mostly completely in the room stuff, and we've neglected the fact that so many adults and autistic people were finally able to access stuff, and then it got taken away again. So it's like a little window where all you can have what everyone else has got, and then it was whipped away, which is why, they don't pay me to plug it, but I'm going to, we are hybrid today. We've got folk watching us online and we've got folk in the room. That's just how it should be. I don't understand why we've forgotten what we learned over that period of history. Actually having both options makes it far more accessible for so many people. So thinking, it was what Nanny Aut was saying about in the room stuff isn't always accessible. It's about keeping that hybrid stuff going forward. You know, it seems that neurotypical folk have decided being back in the room is what everybody wants, but actually that isn't true for everyone, and we need to think about having both options. So, mindful of time, I'm going to go for this one. What advice would you give to autistic young people? There's a lovely open-ended question. Answer that how you will. Who wants to jump on that one?
Okay. The advice that I would give to autistic young people, and this is really opening a door into my talk, which is about autistic childhood, is however hard it is to be yourself, and your people will find you. When I was a kid in the 1980s, there was no word for autistic, so I decided I was unexpected. You know, and basically my experience of being a child was there was an expected child way, and I did not follow the expected child way. I was surrounded by children who looked at me and gave me the message that they'd got a right one here and I was the right one here. So I decided young, before the age of 12, to measure every child on the basis of receptivity, and anybody and any child whose receptivity was below medium high, I discounted. I focused on the ones who were medium high, high, very high. And in that way, I found people to talk to. And I was under huge pressure to cover up being unexpected, which I'll talk about. I did not. And I found children like me, unexpected children like me. I'm 53, and so for decades now, whatever environment I go to, I just focus on the people who I believe are like me. Don't worry about the people who don't get you. They are not worth their time. They will not like you whatever you do, not even if you mask. If they don't like you, they have to learn to cope. That's what I would say to autistic children.
Janine?
So, having 3 young adult neurodivergent kids, it's really nice that someone actually wants to hear my advice to young people. Because certainly my 3 autistic and ADHD kids don't really want to. My advice is to young autistic people, change the world while you've still got the time and energy to do it. Because the rest of us are kind of running out, right? So one thing we're always encouraged to do is accept the things you can't change, right? Fair enough. But so long as you balance it with change the things you can't accept, right? And don't accept being pathologised for who you are. Don't accept being discriminated against. Don't accept being pushed out of the workplace. Don't accept the numerous ways in which autistic people are marginalised and mistreated. And organise with other people. Find your people, other autistic people, but also if you're at work, other workers through a trade union, etc. Organise with other people and change the world we live in. Be demanding. One of the things that slightly bothers me, and this could be opening up a whole can of worms about the diagnostic label pathological demand avoidance, right, is I'm not sure there's anything pathological about not doing everything you're told to do. And I'd be more worried about a kid who did everything they were told to do, than the one who avoids it. So don't accept the crap you're being dealt with now. Organise with others, change the world, be demanding.
Anybody else?
Okay, so, from my own young person, two things. One, fitting in is a lie. If people are connecting with your mask, they're not connecting with you. You don't have that genuine connection that you're looking for. They can only connect with you if you're you. And friendship is about compatibility. So if you are pretending to be something else, you're not going to find your compatibles. They're not going to see you. But if you're yourself, then you will find your compatibles. Second of all, is pretending you don't have a disability disables you. You are choosing to hang a weight around your neck that you don't have to carry. If you need to wear loops in the classroom, if you need to move around in the classroom, if you need a monotropic style of teaching, you need those things to do your best. Why accept something that makes you do your worst? There is no reason for it. So don't be afraid to step up and go, no, I need the earbuds. People need to wear glasses. We don't go, oh no, teacher doesn't go, I'm sorry. Can I see your eye prescription, please, to see that you're wearing glasses? No. If I need to move around, I need to move around. If I need a fidget toy, I need a fidget toy. If I need to have sheets that I can follow from, so I'm not trying to get 5 instructions at once and my brain is losing 4 of them, that's what I need. It's not a shame. Disability is not a crime. It's not something that we should be embarrassed about. It is a fact. This is what I need. Same as my young person, when they go into work, this is what I need to do my best in work or to do my best in school. We need to teach all our young people to do that without apology, without experiment. And it's not an accommodation. This is my need. This is what I need to do my best. Full stop. Not accommodation, not an acceptance, not, oh yes, well, we'll just move you slightly to the side. No, we're not apologising anymore. Our young people need to learn not to apologise for who we are.
Absolutely.
I think I saw you post this one the other day, Dean, or something similar in terms of question, and I was agreeing with every other commenter, and I think I added onto this long list of fantastic comments. You don't have to know who you are right now. You don't ever have to stick with what you've become and then decide oh, okay, I've decided that this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to stick with this the whole rest of my life. Maybe I'm talking as someone with also ADHD as well. But when I was going through school, I was just, good at languages. I was good at what I was good at. And I chased that special interest all the way through a degree. And at the end of the degree, I was like, I don't think I want to do any of the jobs related to this degree. I don't want to work in an oil company or a bank or to do Russian translation for them. So, yeah, I ended up chasing the cake thing, and then the cake thing ran out, and then I took a break. But, you don't have to know who you are. You don't have to stick with the first job you come to. As Janine said, don't tolerate discrimination. Don't tolerate people treating you badly. If they won't listen and change, and, reasonable adjustments is, but, reasonable adjustments is a bare minimum. I had a bunch of different jobs, and I walked there was one time where I was going to hand in my resignation on the same day they made me redundant because I had had enough of them. But yeah, so don't tolerate being treated badly. Chase your passions, follow your interests, do the making change thing, and yes, and be yourself as much as you can.
And it's all certainly.
I mean, it's very hard to add anything to all of that, isn't it? Ditto. I was very struck by someone I know who said a couple of years ago, I wish I could meet my teenage self, shake her by the shoulders and say, for God's sake, don't do that again. And what she was referring to was precisely what I think has been alluded to here, that as a teenager, she wanted to be, inverted commas, normal. I'm broken. I need to fit in. Now, as an autistic adult who's engaged with the community, she would take that all back, not create that mask, and be her true, authentic self. So I suppose if I have any advice for young people, it would be engage with other autistic people. Find them. Find your pride.
And on that point, it links us to earlier. Andrew passed me this hashtag. You're always slipping me little notes. He slipped me a note earlier that said, if you want to contact other autistic folk, you've got questions to ask on Twitter, you can use hashtag #AskingAutistics, and that can be a nice way of connecting with fellow autistic folk. What I would add to that, because we're very, very close to our finish time now, but what I would add to that is that just the other day, so I'm autistic, I'm also undiagnosed OCD, but trust me, I'm OCD, and it's not just about having a tidy house, because I don't have one of those. It's about huge fear of all sorts of things, and huge overwhelming terror. And so all of my life I've not trusted my own judgment. And just the other day, at my very, very tender age, I'm in my very, very late 20s now, I'm 35, but at that very tender age of 35, I finally the other week said to myself, I trust me. And it had taken 35 years to say that. I trust me. I trust me to make the right choice about this. And so what I would say to autistic young people is trust yourself. If you've not got other people to rely on, trust yourself. Other people will invalidate you when you say that noise is too loud, that light is too bright. People will say, oh, it's not as noisy as you think it is. People will invalidate you all the time because they don't experience the world in the same way as you do. Trust yourself. I think a lot of the problem, and when we're talking about alexithymia particularly, and a lot of the problem is that autistic young people are expressing from an early stage that they're distressed about something, and the world around them are saying, you're making a fuss about nothing. And that teaches us to distrust that instinctive voice. So I'd say to an autistic young person, trust yourself, believe yourself. And finally, because I'm mindful of time, I don't want us to run over, but I wanted to finish on autistic joy. So could the panel tell us, and this is an impossible task to discuss autistic joy succinctly, but could the panel tell us in a few words what their individual autistic joy is, if you have one? Anybody want to jump in and share? That was straight away.
Autistic joy. So I like Victorian comic opera, Gilbert and Sullivan, in theatrical parlance. I particularly like the 1950s recordings. As I drove down here from Cambridge, I was listening to Martin Green, that's Martin with a Y, sing the comic baritone parts, and I was in absolute heaven. And the only thing that is better than listening to him is singing those songs using the baritone vocal range. And they tell you that's not possible for people with F on their birth certificates. Believe you me, it is. That's autistic joy.
Janine?
Lego, the Pips on Radio 4 and Peterborough United winning at Wembley. But as well as all those things, actually, I was a union rep for a long time in the RMT, working on London Underground. And saving an autistic member's job, or forcing an employer to treat people better, or change the sensory environment at work, that kind of stuff, bloody brilliant that is. Taking on discrimination, organising with other people and winning. That's joy for me. That and Peterborough United winning at Wembley.
Anyone else?
I mean, for me, there's two. There's my long-term interest. It was a deep interest. When I was a kid, I used to read the dictionary for fun. Yes, because learning new words, the shape of words, the pattern of words, the energy of words, exciting. So people come up with new words and new meanings and etymology and where it came from. Oh my God. Brilliant. And then the small stuff. I'm a real visual stimmer, so things like blowing bubbles and watching that rainbow of the bubble. Pure joy.
So my big thing is music. I love ska shows. I have my favourite little pub I go to almost every couple of weeks. Being in the mosh pit, crowd surfing, getting on stage with one of my favourite bands and singing. Amazing. But also, not to be cheesy, but this is kind of autistic joy. I was part of organising this conference and I'm surrounded by autistic volunteers and co-workers and people who come to listen and enjoy and share with each other, and that is fabulous. That is amazing. So yes, I'm very joyful.
Andrew?
So maybe I shouldn't mention I've had a drink in Brixton with Linville Golding from the Specials then on a night out. No, would that be? Snoopy. in the Peanut strip cartoon. Loved it since I was a kid. Had a one with all the outfits. And I suppose I like to lick my ears. I love them when they feel cold. So I make them wet, flap them, and I love the feeling of a cold ear at the back of the hand. Can't tell you why, but I always have.
And mine would be Doctor Who and Toyah Wilcox. And if Toyah gets a part in Doctor Who, I will combust with autistic joy. But the reason I wanted to finish the panel on that is because we've talked so much about what we need to do to make healthcare more accessible, to make the world easier for autistic folk. But often we come at it from the angle of, you're incredibly overwhelmed and distressed, what will help? When we should be starting with, what makes you joyful? What makes you calm? What makes you happy? How can we put more of that into every day to balance out the bits we can't control? We often start from, let's bring you back from the cliff edge, rather than thinking about what keeps you down at the bottom with the joy. You know, we need to start from joy. We need to start from calm. So I just wanted to end this.
Can I also add, Jacob Rees-Mogg losing his seat?
Oh, yeah. Yes, times 100. So that brings us to the end of the panel. Fiona is standing up, which says to me it's time for us to shut our mouths. So I'd like to thank all of the panel for being brilliant. And let me tell you, when I started doing this work 20 years ago, and I'm sure all of us would agree on this, is you'd turn up to do an autism conference and you would be the autistic speaker on the day. So if there was an autistic panel, it would be you. There wouldn't be a discussion, and you'd be given 20 minutes at the end of a conference. So the fact that in 2024 we've got to the place where we've got an all-autistic conference, we've got an all-autistic panel, there's so much to be negative about in the world, and believe me, I'm sure we're all furious about so many things and things that we want to change, but things have shifted a little bit in that autistic people are at last being allowed, which it should be a given, but we're at last starting to be given the steers. We're at last being given the wheel of the ship. I'm starting to sound like Wes Streeting on Friday into Thursday night now. And drive the boat and keep it dry. And all the other cliches and metaphors he was using. But we're finally being put in the front seat. It's nothing about us without us. People are finally thinking, actually, the way to support autistic people is to ask them. Imagine that. So although it shouldn't be remarkable, as Andrew said earlier, I am remarking on it. You know, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's been a joy to be part of. So thank you to everyone on the panel. Thank you to One-to-One for making it happen. And thank you to all of you for sending your questions in. I'll hand you to Fiona now to move us on with the rest of the day.